The new variant of concern, Omicron, has got the world on alert. Several travel guidelines and advisories are kicking in every moment. So if you are landing in India, this is what you need to know. Firstly, what are these at-risk countries that the government has identified? The standard for anybody landing in India at the moment is that you will have to undergo a mandatory RT-PCR test on arrival. What happens after the test result, we'll tell you in a bit. But let's look into these at-risk countries first. There are roughly about 12, 13 of them at the moment. But remember to revise it because the government keeps changing it, keeping in mind how the variant is actually spreading across the world. Number one, of course, is UK. There are 11 other countries in Europe which are part of this at-risk country. There are countries in Africa like South Africa. There's Brazil, Bangladesh, Botswana, China, Mauritius, New Zealand, Zimbabwe, even Singapore, Hong Kong and Israel. So having understood that, let's tell you what happens if you are traveling from any of these countries and land in India. Like I said, a mandatory RT-PCR test. If positive, you will be taken into institutional quarantine, and if negative, you will be asked to go home but still home quarantine. Depending on how your symptoms are, you will have to undergo tests on the second day, the fourth day, and then the seventh or eighth day as well. And depending on how that result is, you'll have to keep reporting back on various apps, etc., and reporting to your local state governments and let them know how the progress is. But at the moment, there is no one India, one flight policy that the country has because several states are indulging in their own sort of precautions and more guidelines kicking in. Maharashtra, a classic example of that. Maharashtra, if you land there, you need to undergo a mandatory RT-PCR testing. If you test positive, you will be taken into a hospital and institutional quarantine over there. Several ones have been identified by the state government, which you will have to pay for, by the way. And if negative, there will be no home quarantine, but even then you have to get into an institutional quarantine and then get tested again on the second, fourth and seventh day. Now this is a bit different from how the Union central government had envisioned the policy, and this is likely to run into some conflict with the government as well. We're already seeing a bit of back and forth happen, so expect this to be revised as the days and minutes and information more on the Omicron virus sort of kicks in. Let's come into Delhi next, the national capital. Well, there is no compulsory quarantine in the national capital just yet, but a mandatory RT-PCR test is required. Again, if you're positive, you will be shifted to one of the largest hospitals here called LNJP, which has been made an Omicron center so far. And if negative, you are advised to take home quarantine. And again, there will be testing done on the second, fourth and seventh day for you. Similar advisory has come in fact, guidelines have come in for Chennai as well. Positive, you directly go into a hospital. Negative, you still home quarantine. But the crucial bit that you are seeing now in several airports is the kinds of RT-PCR testing that you undergo once you land. So far we knew about a rapid antigen test and then an RT-PCR test. This time around, we are looking at two kinds of RT-PCR testing. One, a rapid RT-PCR, and then the regular RT-PCR. What is this rapid RT-PCR all about? Well, this is a quicker but still said to be the gold standard of testing here. It takes just about an hour but costs you 4,000 rupees. This will help you get out of the queue faster, get out of the airport faster as well in case you are testing negative. But in case you take the regular RT-PCR testing, that's going to cost you roughly between 400 to 500 depending which city and which airport you land in. And of course, the queue there gets much longer. These prices also constantly seeing a revision by several state governments. So do stay tuned to NDTV to catch all those updates. This is Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor signing off.